The wine glass shattered, not by accident, deliberately. Blake Thornton, 29 years old and worth $2.3 billion, had just smashed a $300 glass of Chateau Margaux against the marble floor of Luminaire, Denver's most exclusive rooftop restaurant. "Oops," he said, grinning at his friends around the table. "Guess someone will have to clean that up." The blonde waitress, young, maybe 23, with bright blue eyes and a name tag that read Harper, stood frozen 3 feet away, holding a tray of appetizers. She'd just arrived at their table when Blake made his little scene. "Well?" Blake leaned back in his chair, his brown eyes glittering with amusement. "Aren't you going to clean it up? Or are you just going to stand there looking pretty?" His 4 friends laughed. Vanessa, a former model draped in Versace, covered her mouth theatrically. Marcus, Blake's business partner, shook his head with mock disappointment. The other 2, Sienna and Derek, exchanged knowing glances. They'd seen Blake do this before. Test people, push them. See how they'd react under pressure. Harper set down the tray carefully on a nearby service table. She didn't speak, didn't apologize, just knelt down and began picking up the larger pieces of glass. "You know what's funny?" Blake said, loud enough for the entire private section to hear. "I bet she makes minimum wage plus tips. And I just destroyed more money in wine than she makes in a week. Maybe a month." "Blake, stop," Sienna said, but she was smiling. "Why?" "I'm teaching her a valuable lesson about the real world." Blake leaned forward, watching Harper work. "Life isn't fair. Some people are born to serve. Others are born to be served." Harper continued cleaning without looking up. Her hands were steady, methodical. No trembling, no tears. Just quiet efficiency. "She's not even crying," Vanessa observed. "How boring." "Maybe she's too stupid to understand she should be upset," Marcus suggested. Harper stood up, holding the broken glass carefully in a napkin. For the first time, she looked directly at Blake. Those blue eyes met his brown ones without flinching. "Will there be anything else, sir?" Her voice was calm, professional, completely unbothered. Blake felt a flicker of annoyance. He'd expected tears, anger, something. But this girl was giving him nothing. "Actually, yes," Blake said, an idea forming. "I'm bored. My friends are bored. So here's a challenge." He pulled out his wallet and dropped 5 $100 bills on the table. $500 cash right here. All you have to do is impress us." Harper looked at the money, then back at Blake. "Impress you how?" "I don't know. Surprise me. Do something interesting. Prove you're more than just a pretty face carrying plates." Blake spread his arms wide. "Go ahead, impress us. You have 60 seconds. Starting now." His friends leaned in, grinning. This was entertainment. Watching ordinary people scramble for money. It was Blake's favorite game. Harper was silent for exactly 5 seconds. Then she said, "Okay." She walked away from the table. "Wait, where are you going?" Vanessa called after her. "You're just giving up?" But Harper didn't respond. She walked to the edge of the rooftop terrace where a grand piano sat in the corner, a decorative piece that nobody ever played. The restaurant used it for ambiance, nothing more. Harper sat down at the piano bench. "Oh God, she's going to play." Derek laughed. "This should be terrible." Harper's fingers touched the keys, and then everything changed. Block 2, 4,000 characters. The first notes cut through the restaurant like lightning. Not some simple melody, not Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star or a clumsy attempt at Beethoven. This was Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 3, one of the most technically difficult pieces ever written. And Harper was playing it flawlessly. Her fingers flew across the keys with impossible speed and precision. The music exploded through Luminaire, complex and powerful and absolutely breathtaking. Every person in the restaurant stopped talking, stopped eating, stopped moving. They just listened. Blake's smile disappeared. His mouth actually fell open. Vanessa's wine glass hovered halfway to her lips, forgotten. Marcus whispered, "What the hell?" At the table next to theirs, an elderly woman. Blake would later learn she was Martha Goldstein, former principal pianist for the New York Philharmonic, stood up with tears streaming down her face. Harper played for 90 seconds. When she finished, the final notes hung in the air like magic. Then the entire restaurant erupted into applause. Not polite clapping. Thunderous standing ovation applause. Harper stood up from the piano, smoothed her uniform, and walked back to Blake's table. Her expression hadn't changed. Still calm. Still professional. She picked up the $500 from the table and slipped it into her apron pocket. "Will there be anything else, sir?" she asked. Blake couldn't speak. His brain had short-circuited. Martha Goldstein rushed over, grabbing Harper's hands. "My dear, that was extraordinary. Where did you study? Juilliard, Curtis?" "Both, actually," Harper replied quietly. "I have a master's degree in piano performance from Curtis." The old woman's eyes widened. "A Curtis graduate working as a waitress?" "Student loans," Harper said simply. $200,000 worth. The concert circuit doesn't pay well for unknowns, and teaching positions are scarce. So I work here 4 nights a week to make rent while I prepare for competitions. Martha pulled out a business card. "Call me tomorrow. I have connections at several major concert halls. What you just played, the technical precision, the emotional depth, I haven't heard anything like that in 20 years. "Thank you," Harper said, pocketing the card. She turned back to Blake's table, where 5 wealthy people sat in stunned silence. "Your appetizers are getting cold. Would you like me to bring fresh ones?" Blake finally found his voice. You have a master's degree." "Yes. From Curtis? One of the most prestigious music schools in the world." "Yes." "And you're working as a waitress because of student loans?" "Yes." Harper's blue eyes met his again, and this time there was something different in them. Not anger, not judgment, just a quiet strength that made Blake feel suddenly very small. "Anything else, sir?" Sienna spoke up, her voice soft. "I'm sorry. For laughing, for everything." "It's fine," Harper said. "It's not fine," Marcus said, and he actually sounded genuine. "We were horrible to you." "You were," Harper agreed. "But you're not the first wealthy people to treat service workers like we're invisible. And you won't be the last." She started to walk away, but Blake stood up abruptly. "Wait," Harper turned back. "That thing you said, about being born to serve or be served, I was wrong." Blake's face was red. Whether from embarrassment or something else, Harper couldn't tell. "You're not born to serve. You're incredibly talented." "I'm an idiot." "Yes, you are," Harper said without hesitation. "But you're young. You can still learn." The entire restaurant was watching now. Blake Thornton, tech billionaire and notorious playboy, being lectured by a waitress, half his net worth but twice his maturity. "How much do you owe?" Blake asked suddenly. "In student loans?" Harper hesitated. "Why?" "Just tell me." $207,000, Harper said. "Give or take a few hundred." Blake pulled out his phone. His fingers moved across the screen for 30 seconds. Then he showed her the screen. "Check your bank account." Harper frowned but pulled out her own phone. She opened her banking app and her face went white. "What did you do?" "Paid off your loans," Blake said. "All of them. Consider it an apology for being a terrible human being." The restaurant exploded into gasps and whispers. Harper stared at her phone, then at Blake. "You can't just—" "I can," Blake interrupted. "I did, and before you argue, consider it an investment. You're going to be famous someday. When you're performing at Carnegie Hall. I want to say I helped make that possible. Even if I was an ass about it." Harper's hands were shaking now. For the first time since the wine glass shattered, she looked vulnerable. Young. Overwhelmed. "I don't know what to say," she whispered. "Say you'll quit this job," Blake said. "Say you'll focus on your music full-time. Say you'll let that woman with the business card help you. Say you'll prove that assholes like me don't get to decide who serves and who's served." Harper looked at him for a long moment. Then incredibly, she smiled. "Okay." The next morning, Blake woke up to 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. The video had gone viral. Someone at Luminaire had recorded the entire encounter on their phone. Harper playing Rachmaninoff. Blake paying off her loans, all of it. The video had been viewed 8 million times in 12 hours. The headlines were brutal. Billionaire humiliates waitress, then tries to buy forgiveness, tech bros redemption arc, or just more rich person ego. Classical pianist forced to work service jobs. Student loan crisis exposed. Blake sat in his penthouse, scrolling through the comments. Half called him a hero. The other half called him a privileged jerk who'd publicly humiliated someone before throwing money at the problem. They weren't wrong. His phone rang. "It was Marcus. Have you seen the news?" Marcus asked. "I'm living it," Blake replied. Bloomberg wants an interview. So does CNN, Forbes, and about 20 other outlets. Your publicist is losing her mind. Tell them no, Blake said. Blake, this is actually good press. You paid off someone's student loans. You're trending as a philanthropist. I'm not a philanthropist, Blake interrupted. I was an asshole who got called out by someone braver than me. I don't want credit for basic human decency. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Who are you, and what did you do with Blake Thornton? I'm serious, Marcus. No interviews. No PR spin. Just leave it alone. After hanging up, Blake found himself searching for Harper online. She didn't have social media. No Instagram, no Twitter, nothing. For someone who'd just gone viral, she was remarkably absent from the digital world. He did find one thing. A small article from 3 years ago about Curtis Institute of Music's graduating class. Harper Wells, that was her full name, had won the prestigious Rachmaninoff competition. The article included a quote from her professor. Harper is one of the most gifted pianists I've taught in 30 years. Her future is limitless. Yet she'd been serving wine to people like him. Blake grabbed his keys and headed out. He found Harper 2 hours later at a small practice studio in downtown Denver. Martha Goldstein had mentioned it in a follow-up comment on the viral video. The door was unlocked. Inside, Harper sat at an old upright piano, playing something slow and haunting. She stopped when she noticed him. Mr. Thornton? She said, surprised. Blake, he corrected. Mr. Thornton is my father, and he's even more of an asshole than I am. Harper almost smiled. What are you doing here? I wanted to apologize, properly, without an audience. Blake stayed near the door, keeping his distance. Last night I was showing off for my friends. Trying to be funny. Treated you like entertainment. Yes, you did, Harper said. I want to make it right. You already paid my loans, Harper pointed out. That's more than anyone's ever done for me. That wasn't about making it right, Blake said. That was about my ego, proving I could fix a problem with money. He moved closer. I want to do something that actually matters. Harper studied him carefully. Like what? Martha Goldstein called me this morning, Blake said. She told me she's organizing a concert series at Red Rocks Amphitheater next summer. Major classical performances. She wants you to be one of the featured performers. Harper's eyes widened. Red Rocks? That's huge. She needs funding, Blake continued. The venue is secured, but production costs, marketing, artist fees, it adds up. She needs about $2 million. And you want to fund it? Harper asked. Not alone. I want to create a foundation. The Harper Wells Foundation for Classical Musicians. Blake pulled out a folder from his bag. It would provide grants for musicians struggling with student debt, fund free concerts, and sponsor emerging artists. You'd be on the board. You'd help decide who gets supported. Harper took the folder, flipping through the proposal. Her hands were trembling. Why are you doing this? Honestly? Because you scared the hell out of me last night, Blake admitted. I'm 29 years old. I've built a billion-dollar company. I've been on magazine covers. I've had presidents shake my hand. But last night, a 23-year-old waitress made me feel like the smallest person in the room. Not with anger, not with insults, just with competence, dignity, talent. He sat down across from her. I've spent my whole life thinking money equals worth. That being rich means being important. But you showed me something different. You have worth that has nothing to do with money. And I want to support that, not control it, not take credit for it, just support it. Harper closed the folder. I don't know if I can trust you. You shouldn't, Blake said. Not yet. I haven't earned it. But maybe we could start over. He extended his hand. Hi, I'm Blake. I'm a recovering asshole with too much money and not enough sense. I'd like to help you change the world through music. Harper looked at his hand for a long moment. Then she shook it. Hi, Blake, I'm Harper. I'm a pianist with trust issues and a viral video I didn't ask for. Let's see if you actually mean what you're saying. 3 months later, Harper stood backstage at the Denver Center for the Performing Arts, preparing for her first major solo concert. The Harper Wells Foundation had been officially launched 2 weeks earlier with an initial endowment of $5 million from Blake and matching contributions from 3 other tech billionaires who'd seen the viral video. The foundation had already awarded grants to 12 musicians, and paid off over $3 million in combined student debt. Harper wore a simple black concert dress. Her blonde hair was pulled back elegantly. She looked calm, but Blake could see her hands shaking as she adjusted her sheet music. "Nervous?" he asked, approaching from the wings. Harper jumped. "Blake, what are you doing here?" "I'm on the foundation board, remember? I'm supposed to support our artists." He handed her a bottle of water. "Plus, I wanted to see you play. Properly this time, without being a complete ass." Harper laughed despite her nerves. "The audience is sold out. 2,000 people. You'll be amazing," Blake said. "What if I'm not?" Harper's vulnerability showed through. "What if I mess up? What if people only came because of the viral video, not because of my music? Then they'll leave disappointed and never come back," Blake said bluntly. "But that won't happen. I've heard you play, Harper. You're extraordinary, and you don't need me or viral videos or foundations to prove that. You just need to walk out there and do what you were born to do." Harper took a deep breath. "Thank you. For what?" "For showing up. For following through. Most people make big promises and disappear." She met his eyes. "You actually meant it." Before Blake could respond, the stage manager called 5 minutes. Harper walked toward the stage entrance, then paused and turned back. "Blake, come to dinner after the concert with me. No friends, no audience, no cameras. Just us," Blake blinked. "Like a date?" "Like two people getting to know each other without money or viral videos or foundations in the way," Harper corrected. "Is that okay?" "That's more than okay," Blake said, smiling. Harper walked onto the stage to thunderous applause. Blake found a seat in the back of the auditorium, where he could watch without being noticed. She played Chopin first, then Debussy. Then as her final piece she played Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 3, the same piece from that night at Luminaire. But this time was different. This time she wasn't proving anything. This time she was simply sharing her gift with people who came to listen, not to judge. The music filled the hall with such beauty that Blake felt tears on his face. He wasn't alone. All around him, people were crying, not from sadness, but from the overwhelming power of what they were witnessing. When Harper finished, the audience erupted. Standing ovation, flowers thrown onto the stage, shouts of brava. Blake watched from the back, his heart pounding. He'd funded this concert. He'd helped create the foundation, but none of that mattered. What mattered was the young woman on that stage who'd refused to let circumstances define her worth. After the concert, Blake waited outside the stage door. When Harper finally emerged, still in her concert dress, she was glowing. "You were incredible," Blake said. "I know," Harper replied, grinning. "I mean, thank you, but also I totally nailed it." Blake laughed. "Confidence looks good on you. 3 months ago, I was picking up glass you broke just to humiliate me," Harper said. "Now I'm headlining concerts and running a foundation. It's been a weird few months, and it's about to get weirder," Blake said, pulling out his phone. "Because Martha Goldstein just called. Carnegie Hall wants you for their spring season. It's official. You're going to New York." Harper grabbed his phone, reading the email herself. Her hands flew to her mouth. "Oh my God, Carnegie Hall, that's the dream. You earned it," Blake said. "Not because of me. Not because of the foundation. Because you're that good." Harper threw her arms around him in a spontaneous hug. Blake froze for a second, then hugged her back. "Thank you," she whispered, "for seeing me. For really seeing me. You made it impossible not to," Blake replied. They went to dinner at a small Italian restaurant. Nothing fancy, nothing expensive, just good food and honest conversation. For 3 hours, they talked about everything except money and music. Childhood memories, favorite books, bad movies they secretly loved. Dreams for the future. By the end of the night, Blake realized something terrifying. He was falling for her. Not because she was talented or beautiful or viral video famous, but because she was real in a way nobody in his life had been for years. "Same time next week?" Harper asked as they stood outside her apartment. "I'll be in San Francisco next week," Blake said. "Board meetings." "Then the week after," Harper said. "It's a date," Blake replied. Harper smiled, kissed his cheek, and disappeared inside. Blake stood on the sidewalk, grinning like an idiot, and realized his life had completely changed. All because he'd challenged a waitress to impress him. She'd done more than that. She'd changed him. 6 weeks after the Carnegie Hall announcement, Harper's life had become unrecognizable. She'd quit her job at Billionaire, though the restaurant offered her a plaque honoring her viral moment, which she politely declined. The Harper Wells Foundation had expanded to include 15 board members, all respected figures in classical music. They'd awarded grants to 47 musicians in just 2 months, and Harper had been invited to perform at 8 major venues across the country. But tonight was special. Tonight was the Foundation's first major fundraising gala at the Denver Art Museum. 500 guests. Tickets started at $5,000. All proceeds would go to music education programs in underfunded schools. Harper stood in the museum's atrium, wearing an elegant navy blue gown that Blake had insisted on buying for her. She'd argued about it for an hour before finally accepting. "You look beautiful," Sienna said, approaching with a champagne glass. She'd become an unlikely friend over the past few weeks. "Nervous?" "Terrified," Harper admitted. "I'm good at playing piano. I'm terrible at small talk with rich people." "Just be yourself," Sienna said. "It worked pretty well last time." Blake appeared beside them, looking sharp in a tailored black tuxedo. "The auction is about to start. You ready?" "No," Harper said honestly. "Perfect." "Neither am I." Blake offered his arm. "Let's go fail together." The auction was Harper's idea. 20 prominent Denver artists had donated pieces, with all proceeds going to the foundation. But the highlight was something unexpected. Harper had offered to give a private concert in the winner's home. One performance, up to 50 guests, any program they wanted. The bidding started at $10,000. Within 3 minutes, it reached $100,000. Harper watched in shock as wealthy patrons competed for the experience. A tech executive from Boulder, a retired surgeon from Cherry Creek, a real estate developer who owned half of downtown. When the bidding hit $250,000, Blake raised his paddle. $300,000, he said calmly. The room gasped. Harper grabbed his arm. "Blake, what are you doing?" "Winning," he whispered back. The auctioneer looked around. 300,000 going once. Going twice, 500,000. A voice called from the back. Everyone turned. An older man in an expensive suit walked forward. Harper didn't recognize him, but Blake's face went pale. "Dad?" Blake said. Harrison Thornton approached the stage. He looked like an older, harder version of Blake. Same brown eyes, but colder. Same build, but more rigid. "I'll bid 500,000 for a private concert from Ms. Wells," Harrison said to the auctioneer. Then he looked at Blake. "Since my son seems to have forgotten what money is actually for." The tension in the room was immediate and uncomfortable. Blake stepped forward. "Dad, what are you doing here?" "I was invited," Harrison said. "I'm on the foundation's donor list." "Or did you forget to tell me you're throwing away millions on musicians who can't pay their bills?" Harper felt her face flush with anger, but before she could speak, Blake did. "It's not throwing away money," Blake said, his voice tight. "It's investing in talent and education, something you never understood." "I understood enough to build the company you inherited," Harrison shot back. "And now you're using that wealth to fund pet projects and impress girls." "That's enough," Blake said. "Is it?" Harrison turned to Harper. "Tell me, Ms. Wells, how much of my son's money have you taken so far? 200,000 for your loans. How much for this foundation? How much for your career?" Harper met his eyes steadily. "I didn't ask for any of it. Your son offered because he wanted to do something meaningful with his wealth. Something beyond just accumulating more money." "Meaningful," Harrison scoffed. "You're a waitress playing piano." "I'm a Curtis-trained concert pianist who was working as a waitress because of student debt," Harper corrected, her voice sharp. "And I'm not ashamed of that. I worked hard for everything I have." "So have I," Harrison said. "And I didn't need handouts." "No, you just needed inherited wealth from your father," Blake interjected. "And his father before him." "Don't lecture anyone about handouts, Dad." The room was dead silent. Everyone was watching the Thornton family drama unfold. Harrison's jaw clenched. "We'll discuss this privately." "No," Blake said firmly. "We're done discussing anything. You can either bid on the concert like everyone else, or you can leave. But you don't get to come here and insult Harper or undermine what we're building." Father and son stared at each other. Finally, Harrison turned and walked out. The room exhaled collectively. Blake looked at Harper. "I'm sorry, don't be," Harper said quietly. "You stood up for me, for us. That matters." The auctioneer cleared his throat nervously. "Do we have any other bids?" 600,000, Blake said, not breaking eye contact with Harper. Going once, twice. "Sold." The room erupted in applause. Later that night, after the gala ended and the guests had left, Harper and Blake sat on the museum steps looking out at the Denver skyline. "Your father hates me," Harper said. "My father hates everyone," Blake replied, "including me most days." "Why is he like that?" Blake was quiet for a moment. "He grew up poor. Really poor. His dad worked 3 jobs just to keep food on the table. When my grandfather finally started his first company, he became obsessed with money. With proving he'd made it, my dad inherited that obsession. To him, wealth is the only thing that matters. Everything else is weakness." "That's sad," Harper said. "It is," Blake agreed. "I spent my whole life trying to impress him. Built my company bigger than his. Made more money faster. Got on magazine covers he never did. And you know what? He still thinks I'm wasting my potential." "Are you?" Harper asked. Blake looked at her. "What?" "Wasting your potential. Do you think you are?" 3 months ago I would have said no, Blake said. I had money, success, influence. What more could I want? He smiled slightly. Then a waitress played Rachmaninoff and made me realize I'd been measuring success all wrong. "How should you measure it?" Harper asked. "By whether you're making things better," Blake said. "For yourself. For others. For the world, money is just a tool. What matters is what you build with it." Harper leaned her head on his shoulder. "You're getting philosophical in your old age." "I'm 29, Blake protested. "Ancient," Harper teased. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then Blake said, "I need to tell you something." Harper lifted her head. "That sounds ominous." "It's not. Or maybe it is. I don't know." Blake took a deep breath. "I'm falling for you, Harper. And I don't mean in a, 'I'm grateful you changed my perspective' way. I mean in a, 'I can't stop thinking about you and when you're not around everything feels less interesting' way." Harper was quiet. "I know it's complicated," Blake continued. "The foundation, the viral video, the money difference, all of it. And if you don't feel the same way, I'll back off. We can keep things professional, but I needed you to know." Harper turned to face him fully. "Blake Thornton, do you know what I thought the first time I saw you? That I was an asshole?" "Well, yes," Harper admitted. "But also that you were the kind of person who'd never see me as anything but a waitress. Someone who'd look right through me." "I'm sorry. Let me finish," Harper interrupted. "But then you came back. You apologized. You followed through on everything you promised. You stood up to your father for me. You've been kind and genuine and you've seen me. Really seen me. Not as a viral video or a charity case, but as a person." She took his hand. "So yes, Blake, I'm falling for you too." Blake grinned. "Yeah? Yeah," Harper confirmed. "Even though you're ancient and your father hates me and we have the world's weirdest origin story." "It's pretty weird," Blake agreed. "The worst meet-cute ever," Harper said. "I broke a wine glass and made you clean it up. And I made you cry with Rachmaninoff." "I wasn't crying," Blake protested. "You were absolutely crying," Harper said, laughing. Blake pulled her closer and kissed her. It was soft and sweet and perfect. When they pulled apart, Harper said, "So what happens now?" "Now?" Blake thought for a moment. "Now we take it one day at a time. You focus on Carnegie Hall. I focus on not being an asshole. We build the foundation together. We figure out how to date while being business partners. We probably make a lot of mistakes along the way." "Sounds messy," Harper observed. "Extremely messy," Blake agreed. "But also worth it." "Definitely worth it," Harper said, kissing him again. Above them, the Denver night sky stretched out endlessly, full of stars and possibilities, and the promise of something real built on a foundation stronger than money or viral videos or family expectations. Something built on seeing each other clearly and choosing to stay anyway. 2 months later, Harper stood in the wings of Carnegie Hall, her hands shaking. This was it. The moment every classical musician dreamed of. The stage where legends had performed. Horowitz, Rubinstein, Argerich. And now, somehow, Harper Wells. Blake had flown to New York 3 days early, claiming he had business meetings. But Harper knew the truth. He was there for her. Supporting her. Making sure she wasn't alone. 5 minutes, Ms. Wells, the stage manager said. Harper took a deep breath. She was wearing a stunning emerald green gown that Martha Goldstein had helped her choose. Her blonde hair was styled in an elegant updo. She looked like she belonged here, but inside she felt like a fraud. You're going to be amazing. Blake appeared beside her, looking handsome in a dark suit. What if I'm not? Harper whispered. What if I freeze? What if I forget the music? What if... Blake took her hands. Harper, look at me. She met his eyes. You've played this program 100 times, he said firmly. You know every note, every phrase, every breath. And more importantly, you belong here. Not because of me. Not because of the viral video. 'Cause you're that good. How do you know? Harper asked. Because I've watched you practice every day for 2 months, Blake said. I've seen you work through difficult passages until your fingers ached. I've watched you cry with frustration and then get up and try again. You've earned this, Harper. Now go out there and prove it to yourself. Harper kissed him quickly. I love you. It was the first time she'd said it. Blake's eyes widened. I love you too. Ms. Wells, it's time, the stage manager called. Harper walked onto the Carnegie Hall stage to thunderous applause. The hall was packed, nearly 3,000 people. She could see Martha Goldstein in the front row, beaming with pride. Sienna and Marcus were there too, along with dozens of other supporters from Denver. And in the back, trying to be inconspicuous, was Blake. Harper sat at the Steinway grand piano, the most perfect instrument she'd ever played. She adjusted the bench, positioned her hands over the keys, and took one final breath. Then she began. Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata flowed from her fingers like water. Delicate, haunting, perfect. The audience sat transfixed. She moved through her program. Chopin, Liszt, Debussy. Each piece more technically demanding than the last. Her fingers flew across the keys with precision and passion. Every note was exactly where it needed to be. For her final piece, Harper had chosen Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 2. It was a risk. Normally you'd perform this with a full orchestra, but she'd arranged a solo version specifically for this concert. As she played, Harper felt something shift inside her. This wasn't about proving anything anymore. This wasn't about impressing anyone or living up to expectations. This was simply about the music, about sharing something beautiful with people who wanted to listen. When the final notes faded, there was a moment of absolute silence. Then Carnegie Hall exploded. The standing ovation lasted 7 minutes. People were crying, shouting, throwing flowers onto the stage. Martha Goldstein was sobbing openly. Sienna was filming everything on her phone. Marcus was clapping so hard his hands had to hurt. And Blake in the back of the hall was crying again. But this time Harper didn't tease him about it. Because she was crying too. She'd done it. She'd performed at Carnegie Hall and she'd been brilliant. After the concert, Harper's dressing room was flooded with visitors. Record label executives, concert promoters, famous musicians she'd only read about. Everyone wanted to talk to her, work with her, book her for future performances. Martha Goldstein pushed through the crowd. My dear, that was transcendent. I've already received calls from London, Paris, Vienna. Everyone wants you? Everyone? Harper asked, overwhelmed. The world is yours now, Martha said. The question is, what are you going to do with it? Harper thought about that. 6 months ago, she'd been serving wine at Luminaire, struggling with debt, wondering if she'd ever get her chance. Now she was standing in a Carnegie Hall dressing room, being courted by the biggest names in classical music. Her phone buzzed. A text from Blake. Meet me at the stage door when you're done. I have a surprise. Harper finally escaped the dressing room an hour later, still in her concert gown, clutching a bouquet of roses that had been thrown on stage. She made her way to the stage door, where Blake was waiting with a ridiculous grin on his face. What's the surprise? Harper asked. Close your eyes, Blake said. Blake, trust me. Harper closed her eyes. Blake took her hand and led her outside. She heard traffic sounds, the bustle of New York City at night. Then Blake stopped walking. Okay, open them. Harper opened her eyes and gasped. They were standing in front of a massive digital billboard in Times Square. And on that billboard, 40 feet tall, was a message. Harper Wells, Carnegie Hall, tonight. The future of classical music. Blake, what did you do? Harper breathed. I bought a billboard, Blake said simply. I wanted the whole world to know what happened tonight. That Harper Wells, the waitress they saw in a viral video, just conquered Carnegie Hall. Harper was crying again. Happy tears this time. There's more, Blake said. He pulled out his phone and showed her an Instagram post. It had already been liked 2 million times. The post showed Harper at the piano, completely absorbed in her performance, and the caption read, 6 months ago, I challenged this woman to impress me. She did, by showing me that talent, dignity, and hard work matter more than money ever will. Tonight she performed at Carnegie Hall and proved what I already knew. Harper Wells is extraordinary. Not because I discovered her, not because I paid her loans, but because she refused to let circumstances define her worth. She's an inspiration, and I'm lucky enough to love her. You Harper Wells, you're Carnegie Hall. Classical music. You posted about us? Harper asked. I wanted people to know, Blake said. Not as a publicity stunt. Not for clicks, but because I'm proud of you. And I'm not hiding how I feel anymore. Harper threw her arms around him. You're amazing. No, you're amazing, Blake corrected. I'm just the guy who was smart enough not to let you walk away after you cleaned up my mess. They stood in Times Square, holding each other, while tourists took photos and cars honked and the city pulsed with life around them. What happens now? Harper asked. Martha says I have offers from around the world. London, Paris, Vienna. I could tour for the next 2 years straight. Then you should, Blake said. Harper pulled back to look at him. What about us? I'll come with you, Blake said immediately. I can work from anywhere. And honestly, watching you perform every night, that sounds perfect. You'd do that? Leave Denver? Your company? Harper, I have $1 billion, Blake said. I can hire people to run my company. I can take meetings on Zoom. What I can't do is miss watching you become one of the greatest pianists of our generation. I don't want to miss a single moment of that. Harper kissed him, right there in Times Square while the billboard above them blazed with her name. When they finally pulled apart, Blake said, Also, I talked to my dad. Oh? Harper tried to sound casual, but her stomach tightened. I told him that if he ever disrespects you again, he's out of my life completely, Blake said. No more business ties. No more family obligations, nothing, and I meant it. Blake, that's a huge decision. It's the easiest decision I've ever made, Blake interrupted. You're my future, Harper. He's my past, and I'm not letting him poison what we're building together. Harper felt tears welling up again. I love you so much. I love you too, Blake said. Now come on. There's a reservation at Le Bernardin waiting for us. And before you argue about the price, remember that you just performed at Carnegie Hall. We're celebrating. Okay, Harper agreed. But only if you promise to stop crying at all my concerts. I make no promises, Blake said, grinning. They walked through Times Square hand in hand, past the tourists and the lights and the endless energy of New York City. Above them, Harper's name glowed on the billboard, a beacon for everyone who'd ever been underestimated, overlooked, or told they weren't good enough. Harper Wells had proven them all wrong, and she was just getting started. 1 year later, Harper stood backstage at the Sydney Opera House, the final stop on her world tour. She'd performed in 23 countries, played for queens and presidents, been reviewed by every major music publication in the world. The New York Times had called her the most exciting young pianist of her generation. The Guardian said she was redefining classical music for the modern age, and through it all, Blake had been there. He'd sat in the audience for every single performance. 47 concerts in 12 months. He'd learned to recognize the subtle differences in her interpretations, could tell when she was having a perfect night versus just a good one. He'd held her when she was exhausted, celebrated with her when she triumphed, and reminded her why she started when the pressure became overwhelming. Last show, Blake said, appearing beside her with a bottle of water. How does it feel? Surreal, Harper admitted. A year ago, I was cleaning up broken glass at Luminaire. Now I'm closing out a world tour at the Sydney Opera House. You've earned every moment, Blake said. We've earned it, Harper corrected. I couldn't have done this without you. Blake smiled. I just showed up. You did all the hard work. You did more than show up, Harper said seriously. You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. You built a foundation that's helped hundreds of musicians. You changed your entire life to support my dreams. That's not just showing up. Before Blake could respond, Vanessa rushed backstage. She'd become the foundation's executive director 6 months earlier and had proven to be brilliant at fundraising and operations. Harper, there's someone here to see you, Vanessa said, slightly out of breath. Who? Harper asked. Just come see. Harper followed Vanessa to the VIP area, with Blake close behind. Standing there, looking uncomfortable in a suit, was Harrison Thornton. Harper froze. Blake's father, the man who'd called her a gold digger and tried to humiliate her at the gala. Mr. Thornton, Harper said cautiously. Harrison cleared his throat. Ms. Wells, thank you for seeing me. He glanced at Blake. Son, Dad, Blake said, his voice neutral. What are you doing here? I came to apologize, Harrison said. The words seemed to physically pain him. To both of you. I was wrong. About Harper. About the foundation. About everything. Harper exchanged a glance with Blake. Neither of them had expected this. I've been following your tour, Harrison continued, looking at Harper. Reading the reviews. Watching the videos. You're exceptional. And more importantly, you've worked incredibly hard for everything you've achieved. I was wrong to dismiss that. He turned to Blake. And you were right. About using wealth for something meaningful. The foundation you built has done more good in 1 year than my company has done in 20. I'm proud of you. Both of you, Blake looked stunned. Dad, I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything, Harrison said. I just needed you to know. I'm sorry it took me so long to see it. He pulled out an envelope and handed it to Blake. This is a $5 million donation to the Harper Wells Foundation. No strings attached. Use it however you see fit. Harper felt tears forming. Mr. Thornton, that's incredibly generous. It's the least I can do, Harrison said. I was a stubborn old fool who almost cost my son the best thing that ever happened to him. He looked at Blake. Don't make my mistakes. Don't let pride or tradition or fear keep you from being happy. I won't, Blake promised. Harrison nodded, then surprised everyone by extending his hand to Harper. Good luck tonight, Ms. Wells. I'll be watching from the audience. After he left, Harper turned to Blake. Did that just happen? I think so, Blake said, looking dazed. My dad just apologized. And complimented us. I think hell might have frozen over. Ms. Wells, 5 minutes, the stage manager called. Harper took a deep breath. Okay, last performance. Let's make it count. She walked onto the Sydney Opera House stage to a sold-out crowd of 2,679 people. The acoustics were perfect, the piano was immaculate, and Harper felt completely at peace. This was where she belonged, not because someone gave her a chance. Not because a viral video made her famous, but because she'd worked for it, earned it, and refused to give up even when things seemed impossible. She played her heart out that night. Every note was perfect. Every phrase was exactly right. When she finished with Rachmaninoff, always Rachmaninoff, the audience gave her the longest standing ovation of the entire tour. Backstage afterward, Blake was waiting with champagne and a huge smile. You were perfect, he said, pulling her into his arms. It felt perfect, Harper agreed. Like everything finally came together. Blake pulled back slightly, suddenly looking nervous. Harper, there's one more thing I need to do before we leave Sydney. What's that? Blake dropped to one knee. Harper's hands flew to her mouth. Blake, let me say this before I lose my nerve, Blake interrupted. He pulled out a small velvet box and opened it, revealing a stunning diamond ring. Harper Wells, you changed my life. Not when you played Rachmaninoff. Not when you went viral. But when you looked me in the eye and refused to let me define your worth by my standards. You showed me what real strength looks like, what real talent looks like, what real love looks like. Tears were streaming down Harper's face. I've watched you conquer stages around the world, Blake continued. I've seen you inspire thousands of people. But the moment I fell in love with you wasn't any of those times. It was when you were in your tiny practice studio in Denver, playing for no one but yourself, just because you loved the music. That's when I knew you were the person I wanted to spend my life with. Yes, Harper whispered. I'm not finished, Blake said, laughing through his own tears. Harper, will you marry me? Will you let me spend the rest of my life supporting your dreams, celebrating your victories, and reminding you how extraordinary you are? Yes, Harper said louder. Yes, 1,000 times yes. Blake slipped the ring on her finger and stood up, pulling her into a kiss. Around them, the backstage crew erupted into applause. Vanessa was crying. Even the usually stoic stage manager was wiping his eyes. I love you, Blake said. I love you too, Harper replied. Even though you proposed backstage at the Sydney Opera House, which is completely ridiculous. I couldn't wait another minute, Blake admitted. I've been carrying that ring for 3 months, waiting for the perfect moment. Then I realized every moment with you is perfect. Harper laughed and kissed him again. 6 months later, Harper and Blake got married in a small ceremony at Red Rocks Amphitheater in Denver. Martha Goldstein played piano during the ceremony. Sienna was Harper's maid of honor. Marcus was Blake's best man. Even Harrison Thornton attended and gave a surprisingly heartfelt toast. The Harper Wells Foundation continued to grow, helping over 500 musicians in its second year. Harper performed at major venues around the world, but always made time to teach master classes for young musicians who couldn't afford traditional training. Blake scaled back his business involvement, focusing instead on philanthropy and supporting Harper's career. He discovered he was much happier helping others succeed than accumulating wealth for its own sake. And sometimes, when Harper performed at small, intimate venues, she'd catch Blake's eye in the audience and remember that night at Luminaire. The night a cruel challenge became the beginning of something beautiful. The night she proved that dignity and talent couldn't be bought or broken. She'd come a long way from cleaning up broken glass. They both had. 2 years after that first viral video, Harper was being interviewed on 60 Minutes about her upcoming album and the foundation's expansion into international markets. What would you say to young musicians struggling with debt and wondering if they should give up their dreams? The interviewer asked. Harper thought carefully before answering. I'd say that your worth isn't determined by your circumstances. I was working as a waitress, drowning in student loans, when someone challenged me to prove I was more than just a pretty face carrying plates. And you know what? I didn't prove it to him. I proved it to myself. That's what matters, not impressing others. Not getting validation from people who underestimate you, but knowing your own worth and refusing to compromise it. No matter what. She glanced at Blake, who was watching from behind the cameras, smiling with pride. And maybe, Harper added, if you're very lucky, someone will come along who sees that worth clearly. Someone who challenges you to be your best self. Someone who changes their entire life because they believe in your dreams as much as you do. If you find that person, don't let them go, the interviewer smiled. It sounds like you found that person. I did, Harper said, in the most unexpected way possible. But then again, the best things in life are usually unexpected. After the interview, Blake drove them back to their home in the Denver foothills. They'd bought it together. A beautiful modern house with a music room featuring 2 grand pianos and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the mountains. You were brilliant today, Blake said. You always say that, Harper teased, because it's always true. They sat at their pianos and played a duet, a tradition they'd started on their first anniversary. Blake wasn't nearly as skilled as Harper, but he'd been taking lessons and was getting better. As they played together, Harper thought about how far they'd both come. From that disastrous night at Luminaire to this moment of perfect harmony, she'd been challenged to impress him. Instead, they'd impressed each other. And in doing so, they'd built something neither of them expected. A partnership based on mutual respect, genuine love, and the understanding that true worth can't be measured in dollars but in the lives you touch and the dreams you help bring to life. It was, Harper thought, the most beautiful music of all. If you loved this incredible journey from waitress to world-renowned pianist, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more amazing stories. Hit that like button if Harper's story inspired you, and comment below telling us what moment touched you the most. Have you ever been underestimated? Share your story with us. Your support helps us bring you more life-changing stories like this one. Thank you for watching.